Have you already been there? Yep. Then I'll let you keep it, and I'll go to that one. That doesn't reflect our ideological position.
No.
But it might.
It might to some degree. There are those who think I'm a leftist radical. Because there are folks who think I'm a leftist radical.
Yeah, there are folks who think everybody but them is right. Morning.
Morning.
Hey, Bill. Who's the
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Dave. I thought maybe you were up here speaking.
I am sort of up
You just missed being up here. Anyway, Judy Cloud is going to say a few words about what he knows. Okay? She promises to keep her remarks to no more than 20 or 30 minutes. It should be good.
Where will that happen?
I don't know. Early on, just, you know.
I assumed I would make an announcement about the place, Brian.
Okay, good, perfect. If you do, then she could just shoot 3 minutes. Okay?
Wonderful.
Good.
Should I go?
I'm going to get up and say the first observation.
Well, I make I don't know.
Okay.
It could be there, up here to start with, or...
Well, as long as that works, I might as well be down there. Okay. Great. Good.
Let's say about 2 more minutes, okay? I've got just exactly 11, so that's about 2 minutes. Jackie, about 2 more minutes.
Quick, get him a 4. I'll get him.
You can go ahead and go on now if you want.
Thank you for that. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. My name is Dave Tarbell. I will be your worship associate this morning. We are a welcoming congregation. We strive to welcome people of all gender, identities, races, ages, and backgrounds. It's wonderful to see all our vaccinated members in the sanctuary this morning. We are also on YouTube, and if you want to be on our mailing list, you might want to check out our website at tcuuc.org. Note the email link to request our online newsletter. For those present in the sanctuary this morning, please keep your masks on while you're in the building, unless you're up here speaking like I am. We will sing hymns through the mass, although I gather from the change in the guidelines there may be some changes in those rules, but I think the board has to have a meeting to talk about that before they're final. For now, please silence your cell phones. And if we have any visitors this morning, do we? Yes. We would appreciate it if you'd stand and let us know who you are, and if you're really willing and able, you can step up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Jim. I moved to Stuart 2 years ago next week when everything shut down. My wife and I lived in Jupiter, Sequester for 20 years. And we moved back to Long Island 5 years ago. And I came back here. Elaine and I were married 27 years, 40 states, 20 countries, 18 jumps across the pond, 2 jumps to China, and umpteen cities of wonderful things that happened. I was a school teacher for 15 years. I worked for the Diocese of Milwaukee for 6 years. And then I got my head on straight, and I became a secretary to the insurance executive from whom I retired 20 years ago. Oh, I have 3 children, 2 in Minneapolis, 1 in San Francisco, and back and forth to Paris, and 6 grandchildren. I think that's it.
Any other visitors this morning?
Well, I'm not a visitor, but I never gave a complete introduction like that. I was born in a small
We do have a couple of announcements this morning, and I guess before we get started, I'd like to just say that many of us, I think, have many of our thoughts tied up with what's going on the other side of the world in Ukraine. But we'll try to not think about that for now. Other announcements. Please join us on the first and third Tuesdays of the month at Stewart Veterans Memorial Park, downtown at noon. Bring a brown bag lunch. There will be a coffee house concert on March 4th, 5 to 7 p.m. Bring your own food and beverage. It is now that time of year to give some thought to how you support this congregation, and Judy Clow is going to give us a few more words on that subject.
Toronto so that he could avoid the Vietnam draft. 10 years later, after the marriage had crumbled, I attempted to locate the local Friends meeting. It was not easy to find, but I discovered a possible substitute, the First Unitarian Society of Schenectady, New York. Ron has been there. I began to attend and soon found kindred spirits. There was an evening women's group which had speakers and offered simple catered meals once a month. One autumn, a new adult education course was offered, Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, a women's spirituality course sponsored by the UUA and the UUWF. Now I was hooked. The women in the evening group and others in the Cakes course became my closest friends who supported me after my divorce and when my father died. Discovering that others felt connected and sustained by the earth, sun, and sky as I did really helped to ground me. When Lou and I decided to look for a winter home in Florida, I looked for a community with its own UU congregation. And I found you. TCUUC has become my church home.
And I hope all of you will keep in mind how much this congregation means to you, and think of that when you think about a possible pledge to support this congregation. That's very important. And a big thanks this morning to all of those who helped with the service, to Jackie for the music, to our greeters and ushers, Marina Maloney, and our tech wizards, Chris McCann, Joanne Leone. I think Joanne and Marguerite have been bring us some refreshments to have out on the patio afterward. We open our time of worship with the lighting of the chalice. So I'm going to read some words that come originally from the Fellowship of Oberlin, Ohio, and Reverend Bob lights our chalice. Here. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, faith in ourselves, also to be welcoming to whomever we meet, and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. Bob's title for this morning is, Does the First You Cancel the Second? I'm not going to try to anticipate his words. That title brings up a tension that's been part of our denomination ever since the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists back in the 60s. Historically, the Unitarian side was more focused on individuals and their beliefs. They were more intellectual in style. And the Universalists tended to be a more rural congregation, not in all cases, but tendencies that way. And the Unitarian tended to be more urban and somewhat a little bit more intellectual. No, I think I got some shaded things up here, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. I want to use some of the poetry of Mary Oliver this morning, and she reflects in certain ways part of that tension. She's a poet who speaks in a more common voice than many do. T.S. Eliot and Auden are both poets with Unitarian heritage. They were both sons of Unitarian ministers, and they speak in a much more stilted way, in a manner. Wonderful poetry, but not as easily accessible. Mary Oliver's poetry is much more easily accessible, and I want to use one of her poems for my opening words this morning. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves Tell me about your despair. I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Now, would you please join in singing hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Now we'll recite our affirmation, speaking the first part and singing the second. Love the Spirit of the Church, in service it will follow. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
This is our time of sharing joys, sorrows, concerns. We ask you to keep them personal and brief, and we hope that as you share yours, you will know that you are heard and supported. We start out with a world concern, of course, the war going on daily before our eyes in Ukraine. A rabbi, whose name I can't remember, wrote in New York, the other day that this is not the time for thoughts and prayers. This is the time for nations to do what can be done, and for civilians of nations to encourage their leaders to do what can be done. And it's an awful time for the people of Ukraine, and we certainly hope it can come to an end speedily. And we're asking the Lord to move stones, so move a few for that cause, please. Who else has a matter of joy or sorrow to share? Come to the mic or from your place if you need to. Judith is first. Okay, and then Fred.
Yes, thank you, Bob, for that. It's been amazing. Modern warfare is sitting at home watching it all happen from the comfort of your chair. Unbelievable. I have two concerns. An old little friend died this week, Sidney Mason, who I knew from FAU. And a really big one, long-time acquaintance, friend of the library, friend of this church, was Maggie Chow, who I absolutely adored. I've known her for 25 years, mainly through the League of Women Voters and Friends of the Everglades. She was a giant in the world of environmental politics. This is terrible. She actually spoke at church a couple of times when we were down at the dance studio, talking about the wonderment of God and His creation, and she would go out and do great works.
Hi, I'm Fred.
Yes.
Lovely white line. And have a joy that we are having an adventure club. Yay! On Friday, March 18th, starts at 10 o'clock at Hal Patioki Park. You can meet us there, and then we're going to have a picnic lunch in the pavilions afterwards. If you weren't going to come, please email me so I can expect you. And we're also going to have another one in April. We're going to go to Wakota Hatchie down in Boynton Beach.
Does anyone else have anything personal and brief to share? Yes, Chris?
I'm Chris, I don't remember his name. I've had a pretty rocky couple of months. There's been a lot going on. Sorrows and joys. I'll say that the end of February is turning out to be really nice. I started out pretty rocky. Financially, I was having a really bad month. Worried about paying bills, but I signed 14 contracts in 7 days. So that was pretty good. But on a personal note, after some personal sorrows, I reconnected with someone that I haven't seen in 5 or 6 years, and really glad to have him back in my life. Thanks.
Karina, are you coming up?
If I don't do this, I think Pam might scold me afterwards. So, I told her I would say something. I had the first piece of public art installed over the weekend yesterday. I have a mosaic in the sidewalk in the city of Stewart. It's on Emily Junior Boulevard by River Lawn Park. So if you're strolling around, you'll be able to see it. There's another one too. A month or so ago, we had one by another artist installed by the 555 building. So if you are walking down Colorado, walk by the 555 and you'll see one on the sidewalk there by Diane Concepcion.
Karina, we wish you all success, but I fear what happens when you become nationally known. Anyone else? Miss Pam.
And I do not scold Karina. I live in Port St. Lucie. You might have heard the news story of a man that shot up his family and the 2 dogs. That man lives, did live 12 blocks from me. And because our concern, I urge you all to either talk to one another, if you feel like it, or stay away from one another, if you feel like it. Sometimes you need a break, and sometimes you need to talk. So figure out which one it is, and then take it.
Anyone else? We always move on for people who haven't spoken up, but still we know have matters of joy or concern they carry. And for the meditation, Marge Piercy, to be of use. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who stand in the line and hold in their places, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Marge Percy. Moments of silence. And now hymn 123, Spirit of Life, we hum the verse and we sing the verse through our masks. Now is the time we invite you to give your offering. Those of us who have been around here for some time know that we're here because of the generosity of many. And we hope we'll be here for a long time, in good part, because of the generosity of thee. Now will the ushers, thank you. And now there's a special video. The credits for it say this is a Ukrainian children's choir. It is just beautiful and uplifting, and just try to hold that thought without other thoughts that must rush in as you see these beautiful faces.
Troubles come and my heart was
the sermon, I would like to do something we used to do in church, and that's called a responsive reading. You thought I was going to mention coffee, didn't you? No, I'm talking about responsive reading. I think it's going to appear on the wall. And remember the way we used to do it. You get the italics. Remember that part. It's number 733, called a place of meeting. And the words will appear, and I'll do these and you do the next. Out of wood and stone, out of dreams and sacrifice, the people build a home. Out of the work of their hands and hearts and minds, the people fashion a symbol and a reality.
May this house be truly a place of meeting, meeting one another, meeting one another, encourage and love and counsel.
May all who enter here trust one another so surely that they dare to share the deep fires that burst into anger, as much as the sweet spring waters that swell into laughter, the slow erosion of wounded tears, as much as the soaring song.
May these walls grow silent as the hundred hours searching inward, each for its own small spark of hope, that might otherwise be snuffed out in the noise.
May these rafters hear the voice of the child as surely as that of the orator, and the sound of the lute, the clack of the typewriter, the swish of the broom, and know that all are as holy as the shout of a million stars.
May the rain fall like on this house, the sunshine brightly, the winds blow softly, and bless it as a place of joy and peace.
The author is Eileen B. Carpeles, I think. A few brief announcements. The meeting after the service will start at 12:15. The meeting to brainstorm a group talking about what we've learned about the world and want to share with each other. 12:15, probably out back, at least we'll start there. I've been asked to mention that the board will take up the matter of masks. The CDC has made some new statements about that, and the board will consider all that. I was in CVS picking up the free masks yesterday, and I was masked, and a couple unmasked women decided to tell me that the mandate came from idiots. So I said, well, I prefer to wear this because I feel safer. And so they said, just so you know where it came from. And I wanted out of their presence immediately. So that was that. And the concert is coming Friday at 5. I hope you're planning on it. I hope you have friends and neighbors. John Moore, will you be there? You encourage the support of this group, right? Yes, we're all looking forward to it. It's coming Friday at 5. You have to bring your own goods, a drink, and whatever snacks you want to have with it. You and whoever comes with you will only touch what you have brought. Is there anything else I was supposed to say? I guess not. The sermon, can our first you cancel our second? A couple comments about history. February 2022 is almost history. And again, it was Black History Month. I haven't devoted a Sunday to it. Why? Because I think we are learning about Black history and Black reality just about every month. And we talk about it a lot, and we know we've got to do more than talk about it. If you watch the CNN 4-part series, LBJ, Triumph, and Tragedy, Well, we learned about LBJ and MLK. That picture of Johnson in his 20s as a school teacher with children from very humble homes told us in part where his empathy came from. I don't remember, as I was protesting him in the 60s, hearing a lot about LBJ as a man of empathy. And the series ended with the tragedy of the Vietnam War and made much of the split between LBJ and MLK over the war after several successful collaborations. That black lawyer who spoke for King, the caption said he was Dr. King's attorney. That lawyer said that the disproportionate number of black soldiers dying in Vietnam, 12% of our population, 30% of those dying there, something like 30%. That helped fuel King's anti-war position. They were dying for democracy in Vietnam, but weren't experiencing it at home. That was the only time I heard Dr. King in person in a church in D.C. before an anti-war march to the Capitol and White House, March 1968, a couple weeks before the assassination. As we left the church, we heard from the sidelines, "Clergy, how about a nice smile for the camera?" That picture appeared on the magazine cover of the radical Reverend Carl McIntyre, a New Jersey fundamentalist nationalist preacher. So radical, his pulpit and radio broadcast had to be from a boat beyond the 3-mile limit offshore. That LBJ series brought back the 60s, an historical cauldron from which we are still emerging, if we are at all. The picture on Friday was one for the ages. An older white man president in the middle of two women of color, vice president and supreme nominee. What a picture. Reminiscent of LBJ's breakthrough appointment mid-60s of Thurgood Marshall as Solicitor General of the U.S. and then to the Supreme Court. A second bit of history I can't totally ignore is about TCUUC. In that booklet written by Kenneth George, former UPenn professor and board president here through Cauldron Times of Ours, that little book, History of TCUUC, in my recollection, cites February 1992 as our time of origin. We began in a home and/or a library, and I was told in the early years worship was in the evening so as not to compete with that other popular Florida religion, golf. A few of our founding mothers and fathers are still here. Let's see, that would be Judith. Well, who else was here in 1992? Well, the Shoeys, I don't see them here, but they were in that group. There may be others, I'm not sure. Martha, yes. I was meaning people in the room, but Martha is still with us and unoriginal. And there are others. Now, when I say still, I don't mean that to sound like aging or aged, but 1992 was the last century and the last millennium. Just saying. So we are 30 as a congregation and presence on the Treasure Coast. I like to say we are a young congregation. Which leads to my topic today. I could have more honestly titled it, "Please help me with my frustration," but who would have come to hear that? I wouldn't. And coming out of a national nightmare, this pandemic, are we coming out of it? God, I hope so. But this is not the time to ask, why aren't we growing? This is the time to celebrate the fact that we are surviving. And we at TCUUC have joy to spare. Maybe not to spare, but certainly to share. A funny thing happened on my way to this sermon. I've been wondering why there aren't more of us for about the 15 years I've been associated with you. For a long time, I thought staying alive should be our theme song. I told you how I surveyed a couple colleagues at the last Thanksgiving service about their numbers in the pew and plate. They were concerned and struggling, not seeing what they were used to. I spoke this week to a local deacon of a large Catholic parish. Good numbers, nothing like BP. That's the new axis of history, BP and AP, before and after pandemic. Yes, I made that up. I've talked to several colleagues in New York and Connecticut about how their churches were coming back. One friend who spoke to a prominent and historically large Connecticut congregation recently, a congregation of hundreds, responded to my how many with about 25. That told me time for perspective checkup. Was I glad to hear they were struggling too? Now I have to digress. Back to college philosophy. And I shudder at the thought of bringing this up because I know I have a philosopher sitting behind me. The great German thinker, Immanuel Kant, wrote that one of the sure signs of human evil or original sin is what is now called Schadenfreude. In its worst frame, to take joy, Freude, we all know Ode to Freude, don't we, Jackie? Give us a string. That's enough. Otherwise, we'll never get them back. Ode to Freude, at least to take an ounce of pleasure in even our best friends' displeasure, damage, or Schaden. Didn't you come today for a little German language and thought? Our topic after church is the world. I think that's how Kant wrote it, evidence of our capacity for evil, maybe somewhat innocently expressed as better him than me, or maybe more innocently, I'm just glad it's not me. Skip ahead a couple centuries to another philosopher, Bill Maher. He's a comedian, and he says some really bright things. Recently, Maher said that Americans have turned karma into Schadenfreude. Karma, according to Google, our Britannica, means action, and the opposite is inaction. Many think it means fate, something from our past we can't escape. But Maher said, Americans say karma like it means gotcha, like what goes around comes around to bite you know where. So that's, says Maher, that's who America is today. The answer to hate speech is more speech. Not cancel, go away, go into the hills and mountains and practice your hate speech, and then come back armed with it and more. Okay, my topic was What was my topic? Yeah, thank you. Something about you, right? I've wondered if our yous might be somewhat in conflict. Unitarians started out meaning one God, God is one, not three. And trying to figure out what in the world or out of the world, one and three and one might mean. Well, we might say that takes a lot of energy, or in today's jargon, sucks up oxygen, all of it, and focus that might be, and certainly was intended by the founder, Jesus, to be more gainfully and usefully employed. That gospel tune I've mentioned before comes to mind. Others, Lord, yes, others, as I have lived for others, so I have lived for thee. One of the UU founders in America in the New England colonies, William Ellery Channing, wrote a defining sermon about 1820, now called Channing's Baltimore Ordination Sermon, in which he says pretty convincingly, elevating Jesus to the Trinity detracted from his message and his ministry. I mean, Jesus said, it's not those who call me Lord, Lord, but those who do. Who do? Serve the needy, feed the hungry, heal the sick, visit the imprisoned. I've wondered if that first you has come to mean my freedom to think about these things, what divinity means, what is holy, what is spiritual, think about those as I want, or not think about them at all. That seems like a good thing, and in good part, why we are here, some measure anyway. We get to question for ourselves, and we get to answer for ourselves. Or as in my case, you keep working on your questions and may not get around to the answers, which is okay because the questions feel righter the more you work on them. Back to my question of yous in conflict. So the first you refers to the one as it used to, historically, the oneness of the deity, not the threeness. The second you, universalism, refers to the oneness, the one destiny of all people. So we are all about the same, made from Carl Sagan's stardust, and we are all bound for the same destiny, dust. Universalism, a popular denomination in the American colonies, rejected Calvin's sorting of people at birth, tagged for heaven or tagged for hell. And the most popular Calvinist in the colonies, Jonathan Edwards, concocted a case of schadenfreude to beat all. His sinners in the hands of an angry God portrayed the saved enjoying from heaven, enjoying watching the torment of the damned in hell. What a disgusting view of that deity and that deity's finest. If you've spent any of your history in Christian churches, and I know a number here have, you've heard of the cross as a metaphor, a symbol of the vertical bar, human's relationship to the divine within, the divine without, the divine wherever. The vertical bar intersecting the horizontal bar, and that horizontal bar symbolizing humans' relationship with fellow humans. And the religion is supposed to be about that double emphasis. But what happens, certainly in evangelical Christianity and in Roman Christianity, what happens was the vertical becomes the all, the end all. The religion's mainly about where I end up, my afterlife. And the horizontal, the others, Lord, yes, others, becomes the work of a committee. I've wondered if similarly in UU,
We appeal to people who want rid of judgmentalism and any deity who smells of it, and credo formulae that straitjacket a world of mystery and metaphor and spirituality, a world that changes as we do and shouldn't be straitjacketed at all. For me, it's okay any day to be clueless about where, what, if that world exists, because I know tomorrow I will see or hear something that tells me, wow, look again. Just as an example, you know, we gather at the Memorial Park in Stewart. This is really not another announcement, but we do. 12 o'clock is coming. And we do that to enjoy a bag lunch together and suggestions about Netflix, you know, what's good coming on next. But while we're doing that, we have other guests that come along, waddling ducks, beautiful ducks. Now, they're not looking to be in fellowship with us, I know that. They're looking for something they often go away not getting, but there's such beauty there. Just a thought, I mean, whatever you think that beauty means, you think, I think, but it's there and you have to look up and say, wow. My topic. I wonder, we seem to find it harder to convey to people, bask in the freedom of discovery here, and link up with others to be a community the world needs, and we need. We find it harder, at least I wonder, I think we do, harder to translate that freedom into a mandate for social justice wherever it's denied. And where it's denied is never far away. Sometimes it's just a matter of repeating the obvious and the ridiculous, like the women's soccer team, who have won world championships, getting equal pay the same as the men who haven't. I know this is a biased assessment, but I think we have a pretty wonderful community here. The dreamers who gave us that building and this one were sure the Treasure Coast of Florida, steeped as it is in evangelical Christianity, needed this treasure of unconventional, unorthodox linkage of head and heart, of affirming varieties of religious exploring and discovery, and affirming people who have been traditionally undervalued and under-celebrated, closeted, put down, rather than you raise me up. I am more than pleased that the Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn, President of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, will be in our pulpit April 3rd. I am thrilled and relieved because that's the weekend, if plans hold, Lori and I and our little Gigi will move from Port St. Lucie to Palm City's Monarch Club and to a smaller house. I'm hoping Monarch is named for butterflies. If I were scheduled to be in the pulpit that Sunday, you would likely have been served something from the microwave. Reverend Mourn will be in the area to spend time with her big brother John, to speak at Bureau and here, and to attend an event for the Immokalee migrant workers, an event in West Palm, I believe. We have joined protests for the migrants before, pushing Publix to raise tomato prices a penny a pound so the pickers could get closer to a living wage. Bill Falk, our board president, spoke eloquently a few weeks ago and has written recently about the place of TCUUC, the power of its place in the community and the power of its place in our lives. It isn't a perfect place. No place is. The image of herding cats often comes to my feline-friendly mind. This is our treasured place to bask in and work on who we are and the world to make it a little better for others. Our closing hymn 108. That's it. My life flows on. And then the song. How many verses?
Someone spoke so long with the machine now. See if I can get this back. My life flows on in endless song.
How many verses?
Three.
Closing words will be from a dynamo of UU, William Schultz, was former UUA president, UUSC president, and president of Amnesty International. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
Amen.